Today's episode is brought to you by Oxenham Group. Disengaged employees cost U.S. companies up to $550 billion per year, and a recent Gallup poll showed that only 33% of the U.S. workforce considers itself engaged. How are you ensuring that the people you hire are engaged? The Oxenham Group is a recruiting company that focuses on why a person takes a job and what makes them stay. They do this by understanding one's motivation, skills, and personal mission. Oxenham's proprietary process focuses on three main areas: sociologist-prepared questions, IBM Prove-It assessments, and Gallup Clifton strengths. The combined results give the interviewer valuable insight into the potential for close alignment and the likelihood of engagement. Reach out today to learn more about how you can identify highly engaged people and harness the power of alignment with Oxenham Group. For more information, please call 605-610-3026 or visit their website at oxenhamgroup.com.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Canopy Cast. We are here again. I am one of your hosts, Michael O'Connor, here with my co-hosts Christopher McGuckin and John Michael Price. And our guest this week is Bill McGuckin, a man with lots of experience in a bunch of different industries and currently the founder and owner of the Oxenham Group of companies. Bill, thanks so much for coming on. How are you doing today?
Doing really well, Michael. Thank you. Yourself?
Doing well. Well, it is great to have you on here. First off, I'd love to kind of go into your backstory, tell the audience about who you are, what you do, before we start bombarding you with our questions and our conversations. You know, where are you at right now, and where did you come from?
Sure. Well, I'm in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, which is something I never thought I'd say out loud. Yeah, but I'm a New Jersey guy, born and bred, and I married a girl that I met at Franciscan University, which I know the three of you guys are familiar with.
Oh yeah.
So we met out in Steubenville, and we moved out to New Jersey, lived there for 15 years. And while we were there, we had 6 children. And at the time, I was traveling quite a bit. I was doing about 95 nights a year. And we love Manhattan, love the beach, love being around my family. But we said, you know, if we're going to continue to grow this family, maybe it's better for my wife to be around her family, which is in the Sioux Falls area. So rather quickly, we picked up, we decided, we prayed about it quite a bit, and we moved across country to Sioux Falls. So I went from working in the Empire State Building to being in South Dakota, just outside of Sioux Falls, and have since had our 7th child, who was born about 8 months ago. So it's been an interesting ride.
Wow, that is incredible. What do you think? Like going from the center of New York City, like the Empire State Building, to Sioux Falls. What was it like for you working? Like, I'd imagine I guess to draw a quick parallel, for a lot of people right now in the COVID situation, going from their office jobs in maybe big cities to working at home, like, is there a parallel there? What was your experience then? And, what is your experience now, with the entire COVID situation?
Sure. Well, the differences between New York and Sioux Falls are not as much as you would think. It's going to sound funny, but a lot of it comes down to traffic.
Yeah.
You're around 8 million people, you really don't have time to engage for extended amounts of time. So I think there becomes this real urgency to move and stick and move. But people on the East Coast are fantastic. They're different, but they're fantastic and thoughtful. You come out to the Midwest, people are equally intelligent and interesting. There's a little more time. So you get to have, I think, a little bit more of a leisurely relationship. You get to have a little more time at the grocery line or at the deli counter, et cetera. But I don't find people tremendously different, which I think surprises some.
Well, that's good. No too much of a surprise there. And
No,
then, I guess, considering that's relatively recent, and relatively recently as well, you founded the Oxenham Group of companies. If you could kind of go into that story, from moving out to a new city to pretty quickly starting an entire new series of companies, what's that been like for you?
Sure. Well, we came out here first. So my wife's a professional accountant, and we purchased a Sylvan Learning Center. Was actually our first move. My wife wanted to work with her sister and do something that was meaningful. And we looked at the books, and we looked at how important learning is within the community and allowing children to have confidence. And the Sylvan Learning Center really made sense for us. So that was the first thing we did. We wanted to get engaged with the community, learn about the business owners, and really become part of it. In Sioux Falls, you're really able to know people. You can actually get time with the mayor if you have the right story. So we took advantage of it. We bought Silver Learning and been really, really proud of that. My primary role has always been in building teams within staffing and solutions. And I saw Sioux Falls as an opportunity to find really good talent that could recruit and support the mission of what I felt would be a very successful company that maybe went against the grain a little bit as to where the industry was going. So we opened up the Oxenham Group.
That's fascinating. And you know, coming from our standpoint, just a disclaimer to our audience, you know, the three of us, we also run Chameleon, which is a proud partner of Oxenham. So we know a little bit of the backstory that maybe the audience doesn't. If you could tell more and explain, you know, what Oxenham is, your mission and vision, like what you guys are doing.
Sure. So I'll start with what our vision is. It's really harnessing the power of alignment. And what that means is people have their own inherent values and what they do well, why they work somewhere, why they stay, what keeps them retained and engaged. And we felt that if we can focus not just on placing people, so we're a recruiting and cultural consulting firm, not just recruiting people for companies, but really doing what matters, get to their inherent worth, figure out why somebody goes somewhere, why they stay, and why they're retained. That's been our whole story. We've done it through a partnership with Gallup for behavioral testing. We work with a sociologist to get some really interesting behavioral questions. And we talk about things that people really seem to care about. The industry is $110 billion, but our perspective was it's gotten very aggressive. It's gotten very much about aggressive sales techniques, identifying only skills and aptitude, and moving on to get as much business as possible. We said, what if we took a step back, we focused on people, we were patient and thoughtful, really understood both the company, the culture, and the person, had fewer clients, but got all the business with those clients. And it's been so warmly received. I mean, this is stuff that's not fluffy. People care about engagement, retention, what matters, diversity, overcoming of adversity, and what makes people tick. And as I approach 40, that's where I want to be in the conversations I want to be having. So it's really worked in a number of ways.
That's incredible. And something that, and we were talking a little bit about this before we actually started rolling for you listeners out there. But something I've been loving to see is your guys' mock interviews every week on LinkedIn. You guys are just killing it out there with this incredible like community environment that I'm seeing. How did that kind of start? If you could share that story again with us for our listeners.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Well, if you think about our business, we make money by placing people in the areas of technology and life sciences. And then we have a nonprofit division called Mission Advantage. So ideally, we meet clients, we meet candidates, we find out there's a match, we charge for that service. With COVID, though, it's a really difficult time. And we have a very aggressive, thoughtful, kind of eclectic group of employees. But we want to be mindful of the environment. And now isn't a time to sell. People are losing their jobs every day. And as a small business owner, I work with other small business owners, and they're really struggling. I mean, they're losing their houses, they're losing their rental properties. I mean, there's some people who are really having a difficult time. So we said, how in the world are we going to continue to grow this business to be multi-million dollars, but be mindful and tactful in how we do things? So we said, why don't we just go back to what our model is? What do we do inherently well, and what do people need right now? So we said, okay, well, we're very good at interviewing people. We're very good at understanding, what makes people do well. So let's just do it for free. So what we said was every Friday we would dedicate time to interviewing anybody out there, regardless of profession, and we would do mock Zoom interviews to help them prepare for their next job interview. We'll ask questions that might be a little bit intrusive, will make people nervous, we'll give them very direct feedback with their permission, but it will make them a lot better when that light goes on and it's time for them to do the real thing. So we've done 67 mock interviews. We've actually helped 12 people get jobs. And we've created this little subculture of our network is amazing right now. So it's really worked out well. And it's turned out to be a pretty good business model too, by us making an impact and improving our word of mouth. So it's something we're really proud of right now.
That's incredible. And it's been fascinating to see the response from that, like organically, like from the beginning. I remember the first time you guys posted on LinkedIn, it was like, this is amazing. That's such a good idea. Because I know people who right after the crisis hit, they lost their jobs, and they'd go into video interviews and have no idea what to do, because it's interesting. It sounds like it's going to be easier than an in-person interview, but if you're someone who's had a career for a long time and you're used to walking in and shaking the person's hand and all the body language and the contact, and you being in an office setting, it really is like shockingly different from being in your house or wherever you are and video chatting. It's almost harder to like leverage your social skills in that setting and then come out of that and go into video. Like, have you seen that kind of thing where people who are probably really good in-person interviewers kind of, they don't know what they're doing and they're like, man, I really need help?
They're awful. It's unbelievable. I say that with all the love, because we're working with a lot of them, as were we, but we're talking with COOs and CEOs, and we're speaking with people who are doing computer systems validation and software developers, and they're all so interesting in their own way. I mean, to be a 35-year-old software developer, you've gone through school, you've developed applications, you've got functionality, you're technical. To be a COO, I mean, you've run these multi-million-dollar organizations. That light goes on, and they're all over. They step all over themselves. And it's really been a matter of self-awareness and coaching and saying, you're good enough. You're on that call because you have these capabilities. Let's go back to what social cues are appropriate, and let's go ahead and get you that role. That's what people are looking for. So we've had a few very specific takeaways I'll share in a little bit. But if you're struggling on a Zoom interview, just know you are not alone. It is very normal. And we've had some bad ones, but it ended up being a skill set that they now feel is an advantage. But I think it takes a minute to realize that this is not easy. You can't just go on and say, here you go.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question from that. So, when you're in interviews, specifically like Michael was saying, over Zoom, over, any other video chat system, what is something that an employer that's hiring right now, who's interviewing people, can look for when they're missing that body language, when they're missing that face-to-face communication? Because like you're saying, there's so much that's missed. Are there other indicators you can look for that you've found successful for yourself, for other people to pay attention to?
Well, we've come up with, and we're doing a white paper now. There's 3 main things that interviewers look for and that interviewees should be aware of in going into a call. And if you get these 3 things right, you're going to be more than halfway there. So the first one is the narrative. If somebody asks you, how are you? Why are we on the phone today? Tell me about yourself. You have to be prepared. That is not an open invitation to talk 17 minutes without interruption. And I think what happens is people get nervous. They don't want to leave anything out, and they forget the social cues that make them likable and interesting to begin with. For example, if we met at a bar and we were watching the Met game, and you said, hey, are you a Met fan? And I went on to recite every game I've seen and who I like and where I've been and how many games I've been to, you'd be like, all right, dude, it's cool. And you'd walk away. But if I said, hey, I'm a Met fan, yeah, great game. You guys are from Ohio. You like Pittsburgh? You like Cleveland? All of a sudden, we have this natural dialogue. Another example is I might say to somebody, hey, how are you dealing with COVID? And they'll answer and wait for the next question. In what social situation is it not appropriate for them to say, hey, how are you doing with COVID? How are you handling it? How's your family? So think about what would be acceptable in a conversation and put that into the interview. You don't want to be a questionnaire. You don't want to be a Q&A. So that narrative is critical. Practice it in the mirror. Practice it on your phone. Why are you on the phone? Why are we here? How was your last job? How did you hear about our company? Those are all things that you should have prepared. Not scripted, but have prepared. The second one is brevity. When somebody asks you where you're from, it's okay to say, I'm from Boston, and wait for the next question. Again, people hear that a question, they feel the need to just, I'm from New Jersey and I've got my C+ certification and I've done this and that and the other thing. That wasn't the question. Give the interviewer an opportunity to probe a little bit, show a little bit of self-awareness. Over answering could show a lack of situational and self-awareness. And the third one, which is by far the most important and maybe the easiest, is you need to be interested in order to be interesting. So you don't need to say how amazing you are, but by the questions you ask, you're going to show that you're an expert, and you're going to show that you're interested in the company, you're interested in their mission, what they're doing, and boy, it comes off as a wonderful dialogue. For example, if I was in an interview with you, Mike, and I said something like, Mike, I understand that at Chameleon, your mission is to provide a frictionless environment for people in business. How does this role influence your overarching mission? You'd probably be like, whoa, this guy, right? As opposed to me saying, I've got 15 years as a Java developer and I really enjoy working. You'd be like, all right, fine. But be memorable, right? Make this connection.
Yeah, it's really interesting you say that, because we've definitely had people interview that have obviously tailored their interviews to our values as a company and like what's on our website, and you can tell like they're just came fresh off the website and they're like, oh, I got this because I know exactly what they want to hear. What's your opinion of that? Kind of like over prepping for an interview and almost like saying exactly what the person's looking for.
Well, let's take it to more of a fundamental relationship. If I met my wife and knew she was from South Dakota, and I picked her up wearing a Sioux Falls hat, and I knew everything about her, I knew the names of her sisters and brothers and what she did, she'd think I was a creep, right?
Right. That's a really good parallel. I like that. Yeah, it's interesting because that's something that we've kind of adopted too. Is that like all relationships are very similar, and we've said like especially business relationships, you have to treat everything the same way. Respect, transparency, having a mutual understanding of what's going on, and really good communication. And communication is the basis of everything. And like you're saying in an interview, you have to have that good communication, the back and forth, and an understanding of what's going on. And one of our other taglines is business is personal. Because you have to have that connection to have a successful business relationship. And I think that's going through a parallel as well with interviews, especially right now. It's for a lot of people, it's harder to make that connection. Because they're not in person, and that's some great advice, for people to look for that are trying to accomplish that.
Tom Petty has a line in the song Refugee that says, "You and me, we both know something. We don't feel the need to talk too much about it." And I think it's so wonderful for business conversations, sales conversations, and interviews. Give the person interviewing you a little bit of credit. They read your resume. You're in the room. You're talking about their company. Let's elevate the discussion of the things that matter. Mission, goals, vision, alignment, what the stakeholders say, things that are posted on the internet, objectives of the organization. We can get into when you were a lab tech back in 1977, but maybe we just kind of bypass that and really talk about how it might look if we're working together. And start there. You can always dig down in the weeds if necessary. And if they do want to bring in the weeds, be prepared. I mean, maybe that's somebody's interview techniques. That's fine. But start high. You might be surprised.
Speaking of interviews, John Michael, I believe it was you that mentioned, I think we just hit like number 100 for ourselves, right? Is that correct? About 100 interviews so far. With
applications, 100 applications.
I was going to say, I was like, I thought it was interviews. I wasn't sure if it was interviews or applications. Yeah. I know we've learned a lot since starting our company with, the process and what to ask, what not to ask, how to prepare, how to help others. Like, it's been a really big learning curve, and it's been very beneficial. I know for myself, and I think I can speak on behalf of these guys here too. So I know the process is very important.
I think it's interesting. It's something that, to be honest, I never thought about until we started Chameleon, the first kind of company of, what am I going to do to interview people? I was always someone who thought about, how do I present myself in an interview? It's like, shoot, what questions do I ask now? What am I looking for? Like, what do I actually need to, bring success to myself and my partners in our organization and the person that I'm interviewing? What tips do you have for people who are interviewing now and who, maybe they've been doing it for a long time and they don't know what to do now because of COVID, or maybe they're new recruiters? What are your tips for them?
Well, I think the first thing is we have a tendency to hire people we like. But very often, people we like aren't the right fit for the organization. And I don't mean that we hire people we don't like. But if you have somebody that has an overall alignment with your goals and mission, you want to have some diversity on your team. So go into the interview and say, I'm probably going to, particularly if it's a sales role or a customer-facing role, this person is prepared and they're going to be likable. But do they round us out? And do they provide some areas and perspective that we don't have right now? Wall Street Journal just did an article on it. It's very difficult to hire somebody that you need, not hire somebody you want, just because they're a go-getter. They work hard in a fast-paced environment. But what does that really mean? Think about your company in 5 years. What do you need to do to round it out? We've created some questions that we think are pretty innocuous, but help uncover some different thought patterns of people. I'd be happy to share a couple of them with you right now, and the audience can feel free to use them. Just
Sure.
if they're bringing on contractors or consultants, just call us first before they use our
Yes,
questions.
Yeah.
First.
I was actually going to ask, what are some of your favorite questions if it's not giving away all your secret weapons?
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. So they're going to seem innocuous, but think about where it puts the people. So the first one is, having read the job description, how does this job specifically align with your professional goals? And let that breathe like a bottle of wine. Let them go and really see. They're going to tell you so much that you didn't even expect by asking that question. Or they're going to tell you they didn't read the job description and they're not prepared for this role. Give me an example of a time when you didn't meet expectations and how you attempted to rectify the situation. That's going to show humility, and it's going to show communication skills. And you'd be surprised how many people, we had somebody just interview with a major archdiocese in the Northeast, and they wouldn't tell us about a time they failed. And honestly, it kicked the person out of the running because this archdiocese wanted humility. So that's an important one. I love this one. Describe a time when you were the resident expert, and what was your communication strategy? Again, it seems simple, but I need to own the fact that I'm an expert in something. I need to do it in a very humble and clear way, and then share with you my communication strategy. And then what I really love is, after this engagement, what's your next career step? And it's meant to be a little bit awkward because they're interviewing for a full-time role. So they're going to take a minute, respond to that strange question, and say, well, if I grow with Chameleon, I'll have an opportunity to improve my social presence. Or they're going to say, well, I'm going to use Chameleon to get another $5 an hour on my next opportunity. So those are just a few that will really make somebody think and aren't really canned. But I want to turn the tables on you guys a little bit.
Oh, okay.
In order for us to interview candidates that are going to do well, we really need to know about the organizations we're working with. So a question I'll have for you guys is, what makes you guys proud to work for Chameleon?
It's a good one.
That's a good one. Do you want to answer first? Go for what you want to do.
Sure. Someone recently asked us this because we had an investor meeting with someone for another subsidiary we're looking at, and they asked us, what's the thing you're most proud of about your business thus far, and I think that aligns with the question that you're asking. What makes us proud to work at Chameleon, and specifically for me, it's the culture that we've built, and I really, really enjoy the culture that we have, and the people that we have on our team, and how each individual person, like you said, rounding out the company, each individual person, what they bring to the table and how they change the culture. And it's just fascinating for me to see each person we add to the team, no matter how much someone aligns with the culture that you already have, you can't deny the fact that when you bring someone else in, it's going to change it a little bit. And just developing that over time has been one of the things that I'm most proud of about working with Chameleon, because I think that we're building that culture where people show up and give extra even when they're not asked to, just because they love what they're doing. They love working with the other people in the business. And it really speaks to how happy people are and how well they're working together. I don't know if that's a full enough explanation, but I think definitely the culture for me, and for those reasons.
So in your mind, you have what you want the culture to be now and in a couple of years, but this isn't a petri dish. You're going to bring in diverse people. Are you prepared to let it go and release control a little bit? And how critical are you of that culture, and how open are you to it evolving, maybe even past what you intended? Because that will happen. I mean, you have 32 people now? I mean, that's...
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I think, especially right now, we're in a very good place, especially with COVID, people being able to work remote, and having that remote first communication structure mindset. has really been successful for us in the culture and how people work together. Moving forward, like you said, are we going to be able to relinquish control a little bit and see where that goes? I think that's part of the plan, is bringing in people that are going to continue making it their own, especially managers of departments. Alex Lamparella over in operations, he's doing a great job with HR and vetting people, bringing them in with the intention of these are the people that are going to be building the future of the culture. And I think, from my perspective, if we continue bringing in great people, then I don't have to worry about where the culture is headed and having that, vice grip control over it, because the people being great are going to make the culture great, and they're going to just continually add to that. That being said, and in the future, I think, it's definitely not going to look like what I think it's going to, and I'm perfectly okay with that. I think what I think it's going to look like is going to be far less in value than what it will actually be if we continue bringing the people on that we've been bringing on.
Absolutely. The moment I knew that we were formidable, it wasn't when we had our business model that is novel and I think in a vacuum the best in the industry. But we've hired some upwardly mobile professionals, younger, who are really engaged and involved. But it was a Friday, and our youngest employee got me on the phone and said, "Bill, I don't know how to say this, but we said we were going to do a couple things this week, and we didn't do them." And he was ticked off. He was concerned. He was approaching me appropriately, professionally, but it was bothering him. And he said, "Bill, if we're going to say that we're going to do something, let's make sure we do it every time." And he was kind of nervous. And I gave my partner a big high five. I'm like, yes. The culture now is something that he's involved in. He's pressing me as his leader because he wants to do a better place. So he took his advice. Every day now we commit to 2 things, and we don't leave until we make those 2 commitments and fulfill them. And he shaped the culture. And I never thought of that, but I tend to dream a little bit and think about these things, not realizing how heavy my words can be on an upwardly mobile person. That was the day I knew that we had hired the right person in him, and now he's making an impact and is going to eventually take on a leadership role. But I was very proud of that. And that was kind of an example of the culture getting away from me, but in a good way.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I guess just hearing that story is incredible. And I think there's something special about being either the founder or owner of a company and seeing that happen. Like, I know for me personally, seeing the growth of our employees and the growth of our culture has been just incredible. And like you're saying, when you see someone take it on themselves, when you see someone who is, part of it really becoming part of that family, that unit, it's just wild. Like I remember, going from when it was just the 3 of us, to bringing the first, few people on and kind of giving up a little bit more of the box of what Chameleon is, and then giving a little more and a little more and a little more, and seeing the ways that people can add so much. I mean, in the end, the business is just about people. It's about interactions and providing value and bringing people into a culture that provides that. And I think that, I feel like there's a definite kind of a revival in that thinking now, which is interesting. I think with the coronavirus, more people are thinking more empathetically, more about the people and the human aspect of business than for a while. I think there's been fascinating kind of a turning back towards the human aspect of business from the virus, which I think is a kind of a silver lining of it. And it's unfortunate because that's at the same time when so many people are losing their jobs, so many businesses are going under. But I think for me, at least, it gives a lot of hope for the future. When we get out of this, I think there's going to be a really powerful empathy and human component in business. I guess if I feel like you've seen that as well, with the mock interviews, with the culture you've been creating at Oxenham, how is that, I guess getting back to your story, how has that been for you as the founder?
To me, we're just trying to talk ourselves into the New Testament. I mean, we have Maxwell and Sinek and Collins and all these stories. Isn't it just servant leadership?
Yeah.
Isn't it just treating people with respect and dignity and identifying their inherent worth, allowing them to succeed? And we kind of step on it. I remember somebody had this big poll that says if you treat your frontline people well, you'll produce. And it was like this Harvard study. And I'm like, what? Of course. You know, we don't need to be cigar chopping CEOs with larger than life personas. So just get out of your own way, right? And sometimes if you're not ready to say something nice or be encouraging, just don't say anything for a little while. And that's okay too. Let it breathe. But people like you had mentioned, John Michael, people will surprise you. You give them a little bit of rope and opportunity, they'll do amazing things. And we don't have to look far for that. I hope there would be a book called Jesus Christ Billionaire, because he had it figured out. And we just keep trying to rewrite it and put our spin on it. And, 10 laws of irrefutable leadership. Yeah, 10 commandments. We get it. It's
I mean, he's pretty much the most successful entrepreneur in history. I mean, he's got the oldest organization and, the most
Right?
and everything. So, hey.
Imagine if he had Twitter and Instagram and stuff. I mean, it was nothing. So. But that human element, it's what people want. And then vulnerability, I think, is important too. I mean, would you date or be friends with somebody that was afraid to be vulnerable? I mean, that's really where the good stuff happens. No one's your grandkid's not going to sit on your knee in 30 years and talk about 10 years of sequential 10% growth. They're going to want to know you overcame the coronavirus and you had to let go of somebody but found them a job, or you did a mock interview, you started a company, or you helped out, you gave food. That's the stuff that builds character. That's what matters. So it gives me another question for you guys. As you're growing, you've got your vision. Everybody's positive. I'm sure you guys are having some growing pains. What's some adversity that you guys are overcoming, and what's your strategy for that?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that we kind of figured out was going to be a struggle around like the midway point, was making sure that we had like really good, like we talked about earlier, communication across between even just the three of us to everyone in our organization. And I think that was something that definitely pretty early on, and then later on as more and more people became involved and became, a larger kind of organization, really became a crucial aspect and many times a pain point. And it's funny because it started off, sometimes like me and Chris wouldn't understand something and we'd go off in tangents and do things, and maybe I'd do something really wrong and we'd have to fix it. And at that stage, it's like, okay, I went off and did something wrong. We can fix that. It's just one thing. Now it's like if we have a really bad miscommunication, a whole department can go and do something, and we're like, oh my gosh, this is the wrong way to do this, or this, it's just not what we needed to do here. We have to go back and do this whole kind of process, and kind of figuring that out over time of like, wow, like communication and making sure that people understand exactly what's going on is so crucial. And I think especially now with the coronavirus, being, like you were saying, being vulnerable with other people is so crucial. That transparency, one of our pillars as a company for Chameleon is transparency, and having the kind of the humility and the empathy to be able to say, hey, this is what's going on. Either I know these people who are getting fired, and that's awful, and we need to like reach out and, like you're saying, like find them jobs. If we need to lay people off, like at least try and find them jobs, and have that transparency. If you need to lay people off as a company, be like, look, this is what we're going through right now. We need all hands on deck to not have this happen. And I think it's interesting because it's the situations where organizations don't do that really stand out. Like I vividly remember the Marriott situation. I think that was in March.
That was bad.
Where they pretty much just furloughed all of their low workers, but didn't give them any hours, so they didn't have to pay unemployment or anything. And that was just a really rough situation. And I think I know for me, that taught me a lesson in terms of, very individual decisions as an organization can make so much of an effect for good or for bad. And I think, over time, some of the growing pains definitely have to do with that, the decision making, the communication process, being able to continually improve as well. I think that continuous improvement, for manufacturing is a whole thing, but I think it's also vital for every organization in their communication. I think that's something that was definitely and is still we're still learning from it.
Yeah. It's interesting, vulnerability. I work for Advanced Clinical, a really great organization. They treat their people outstanding. And because of their industry, they're very cautious with their communication style. So if they were going to do video, it'd be professional and it'd be copywriters. And when we opened up Oxenham Group, uh, my team said, get in front of the camera. And I'm losing my hair, and I don't have necessarily a professional backdrop, but I started chatting. And my first one wasn't very good, and they're still not as good as I wanted to be. But it was okay to be vulnerable. And now it's very often will be a first take. And I think it's seeped into our business a little bit. I don't need to have a perfect team meeting or a perfect conversation with a client, but it has to be real. It has to be honest and vulnerable. And I think it's been one of the areas I've really grown in and enjoyed as a business owner, as a long-term dream to be one. But that vulnerability is so key.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and going off your question, Bill, the thing for me, communication is huge, and I preach that to everybody and drill it in them. They're probably sick of me saying the word communication, but I think the two other things that have been things that we've had to overcome, obviously with COVID, having an agency that's focused on B2B services, a lot of businesses right now are shutting down, firing, furloughing, and that's put a huge obstacle in our way that we've had to pivot and figure out a different way to market. So that's one. The biggest one for me, though, like you said, being a daydreamer, being an ideas person, I think the biggest thing that we've had to overcome, even over communication, is as a company that has started and been climbing that vertical pretty quickly. Going from launching in September to now, you said over 30 employees. The biggest thing for us has been, while we take those steps on the vertical staircase, to be careful not to skip any. And that's been the biggest thing for us is, as we add departments, as we put people in leadership positions, going through all of the steps necessary to make sure they're set up for success. And I think a lot of companies skip steps, and we've been doing our best to make sure we're not doing that. But that definitely adds many, many layers of complexity, because there are a lot of steps in there that you don't feel are necessary. And they're very small steps, but absolutely critical.
Absolutely. One thing that we've learned, and this goes with our team and with our clients, is first, it's always about the second phone call. You get on a phone call and you have all this excitement. There's all synergies, and then nothing happens. Either you didn't deliver, you're embarrassed. It's always about that second phone call following up. And number two is those incremental wins. You talk about $1 million partnerships. Let's just get a one PO. Let's get one opportunity, one win, and then build off of that. And I think that's an easier way to start climbing the staircase than having these big dreams and kind of toying and playing with people's emotions, because people are emotional. But boy, if you could put a couple wins behind you, you get some serious wood in your sails, and that's been helpful for us.
Now, Bill, we want to be respectful of your time here. Chris and Jan, do you guys have any final questions, or Bill, do you have any final questions for us? Because we want to make sure we give you the time you need, and we can. Any final questions from anyone?
Yeah, I'm guessing our network's going to see this. When people hear chameleon, what do you want them to think about?
That's a good one.
I want to hear Chris's thoughts on this one. I'm going to put him. He threw me under the bus on the regular, so I want to hear Chris's answer to this, because he's been a little quiet. That's
a good question.
Yeah, adaptability. That's the first one that comes to mind. I mean, obviously it reflects in the name, it reflects in the brand, the gut reaction you get, adaptability. But more than just that, I mean, whether it's with COVID and being adaptable, whether it's for every single client, whether it's the timeline of the project, the scope of the project, the budget of the project, whatever it is, being adaptable, I think is the word that comes to my mind personally, as far as what I want people to think of when they hear the word, chameleon, when they hear, oh, I've heard of that business, I've heard of that company, they're adaptable, and of course there's other words, innovative and all these other wonderful adjectives, but adaptable is definitely the word I would use.
And I got to say, when we worked with you and you provided that marketing content for us, and I knew we weren't the biggest fish that you were dealing with, I called you up, I had a client on the line, I had to show him something, you got back within moments. And that's something you don't forget. We were both growing at the time. We were scrappy, and you got it done for us. So you're definitely living your values, and we appreciated that over here.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I have any questions on my end. I mean, it's just been really, honestly, it's different. Usually I'm talking a lot, but this time I was just, sitting and listening, and I got a lot out of this.
Good, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for all of your insight. Thank you for all of your content that you've brought here today. I know a lot of people are going to grow from this, whether they're the interviewer or the interviewee. And I hope it brings you a lot of light, shines some light on Oxenham, and
Well, thank you.
best of luck continuing through COVID.
Thank you. And as your customers are thinking about Oxenham, I want them to think about retention and engagement for either consultants or full-time employees. What makes people stay? What makes them engaged? And is Oxenham a group that either complement your recruiting services or take over them and help you with a solution? And maybe we are, in some cases, maybe we're not, but it's certainly a conversation we'll enjoy having. And I welcome your customers and friends to keep us in mind. And more importantly, if you're unemployed, you're interviewing, call us. I don't care what you do. We'll get you Zoom interviewing. We'll get you used to it, and we'll get you back getting that job you want. I warmly welcome you to reach out, and we'll take care of you with that.
Appreciate it. One last quick question for you. I know you said when people think of Oxenham, XYZ, what is, furthering that, what makes you stand out from other recruitment agencies? What's that X factor that you're bringing to the table that's that extra step that people can look for?
Well, we're doing things that I can say confidently no one is doing. When you're looking to hire somebody, we're doing sociological behavioral questions that give you insight into the person. We're doing Gallup Clifton Strengths Finder, so you know what makes them tick when they're working with you. When it's a technical role, we're doing IBM Connexa screening. And I think more importantly, we're going to really challenge you as a customer to make sure that you know what you want. Or if you don't know what you want, we'll help you identify that. It's a different play. It's not clunky, it's different. And that's something you're not going to find from the quote unquote traditional staffing firm. We're proud of that.
Yeah, awesome.
Bill, thank you so much for your time. Everyone, please check out the Oxenham Group and Bill McGuckin. We'll put all of the social links and their website. Check them out. Give them a lot of love. Bill, thank you so much for coming on Canopy Cast. It's been a pleasure.
Keep it up, guys. God bless you.
You too.